The Endeavour glided through the endless void, its crew more bored than tense. Interstellar exploration wasn't all thrilling battles and first contact moments, it was mostly empty space and bad coffee. Commander Hayes sat in his chair, spinning it idly as the ship hummed quietly around them. "Anything yet?" he asked, stifling a yawn. Lieutenant Parker, the communications officer, tapped at her console with a frown. "Just the usual background radiation. Stars, more stars, and a nebula that looks like a middle finger if you squint hard enough." The crew chuckled. Space was big, dark, and mostly empty. They had been out here for weeks without so much as a blip worth investigating. Hayes was about to suggest a movie night when suddenly, Parker's console started beeping in a way it hadn't before. "Wait, hold on," Parker's fingers flew across the controls. "We've got something. Energy readings off the charts. Definitely not natural." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "Not natural, like asteroid colliding not natural, or someone built this not natural?" Parker's eyes widened. "Oh, someone definitely built this." Hayes leaned forward. "Now we're talking. Put it on the screen." The display flickered, and an enormous structure filled the view. No, not just one structure. Multiple. Hundreds of ships, gigantic, sleek, and glowing with energy signatures humanity had never seen before. At the center of it all, a massive station, easily the size of a small moon, shimmered against the backdrop of a distant star. The bridge went silent, the crew staring in awe. "Well, that's something," Hayes said after a long pause, his tone caught between amazement and a hint of sarcasm. "I think we found the neighbors." "More like the whole damn neighborhood," Parker muttered. "We're picking up dozens of different alien transmissions. Looks like, yeah, this isn't just one species. It's a council or something." Hayes scratched his chin, his earlier boredom completely gone. "So, we've just stumbled upon an intergalactic committee meeting, huh? And they've been keeping quiet all this time?" Parker nodded. "Seems that way. No idea how we missed them before, but this place has been here for a long time. They weren't exactly advertising their presence." "Well," Hayes said, leaning back in his chair with a grin, "it looks like we've crashed their party." Without warning, a new signal blasted through the ship's systems, a message. The language was foreign, but after a few seconds, the translation software kicked in. A cold, authoritative voice filled the bridge. "Unidentified vessel, you have entered restricted space under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Council. Identify yourselves immediately." The crew exchanged glances. A Galactic Council? They had no idea what that meant, but it didn't sound friendly. Hayes smirked. "All right, let's make a good first impression. Open a channel, Parker." The screen flickered again, and this time, the image of an alien appeared. Tall, with a shimmering, translucent skin and a series of glowing orbs floating around its head. Its expression, if it could be called that, was one of barely concealed contempt. "This is the Galactic Council. You are an unregistered, primitive species. Your technology is rudimentary at best. State your purpose here." Hayes stifled a laugh. "Primitive? Rudimentary? Sure, the Endeavour wasn't the sleekest ship in the galaxy, but it had its quirks. And hey, it worked." He waved for the channel to be muted for a second. "Did he just call us primitive?" he asked, incredulously. The crew chuckled, a few of them shaking their heads. "Yep," Parker confirmed. "Primitive." Hayes shrugged. "Well, let's not disappoint. Unmute the channel." "We're explorers from Earth," Hayes said, the grin never leaving his face. "You know, checking out the galaxy, seeing the sights. Didn't mean to crash your little meeting here." The alien narrowed its eyes, or at least, it looked like it did. "Earth? I do not recall such a planet being of any significance. You are in violation of several intergalactic protocols." "First time for everything, I guess," Hayes quipped. "Look, we didn't mean to stumble into your highly classified top secret space station or whatever this is. But since we're here, why not say hello? Maybe we can share a drink, exchange some stories. The alien didn't seem amused. Your presence is not welcome here. The Galactic Council has no need for backward species like yours. We will be evaluating your threat level, though I suspect it to be negligible. Hayes couldn't help but grin wider. Well, we've always loved a good evaluation. Knock yourselves out. Muted laughter broke out across the bridge. The crew, while maintaining some professionalism, couldn't help but be entertained by the Council's arrogance. Sure, the alien ships were shiny and looked advanced, but they hadn't dealt with humans before. And humans? They were good at surprises. The alien on the screen appeared flustered, clearly unused to this kind of reaction. We will contact you again with our decision. Do not attempt to move your vessel. The screen went black, leaving the crew to absorb what had just happened. Hayes turned to Parker, shaking his head with a smirk. Well, folks, it looks like we've made quite the entrance. Parker grinned. Should we take bets on how long it takes them to figure out we're not exactly the pushovers they think we are? I'd give it a few hours, tops, Hayes replied, leaning back in his chair. But hey, at least we're not bored anymore. The crew laughed as the Endeavour drifted silently, awaiting the inevitable response from the Galactic Council. Little did the Council know, they were in for far more than they'd bargained for. The Galactic Council's representatives convened, their holographic forms flickering into place across the Grand Chamber. Each figure radiated superiority, their species hailing from the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. They had long grown used to their elevated status, accustomed to dealing with so-called lesser species. And now, here they were, faced with a new one, humans. The representative of the Zythar Dominion, a species known for their precise, calculating nature, was the first to speak. Primitive. Their ships barely register on our scanners. Their technology is quaint. A low murmur of agreement rippled through the other members. The Delnar, a species with biologically enhanced intellect, raised an eyebrow, or the alien equivalent of one. Their vessel is rudimentary at best. No sign of quantum communication, no advanced artificial intelligence. This is not a species worth our attention. Another alien, sleek and towering, let out a sharp, dismissive noise. I question why we are wasting our time on them. The Galactic Council exists to oversee the most advanced civilizations, not play babysitter to backward worlds. The Council was used to strict protocols, first contact procedures that involved overwhelming technological superiority, showing the lesser species where they stood. Their AI-driven ships, vast fleets, and biological enhancements typically rendered diplomacy a formality. But as they watched the humans respond, something was off. These humans weren't reacting with the expected fear or awe. Instead, they were laughing. Inside the Endeavour, the crew couldn't help but find the whole situation amusing. Commander Hayes leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. They really think we're running on steam engines and duct tape, don't they? One of the engineers snorted. I've seen more impressive tech in the break room. This coffee machine's a beast. The room erupted in quiet laughter, much to the confusion of the Council's representatives. To the aliens, the humans' casual demeanor was completely inappropriate. Where was the reverence? The respect for superior beings? They couldn't process the humans' lightheartedness. The Zythar rep narrowed his eyes, clearly baffled. Do they not understand the gravity of their situation? Meanwhile, Parker, the communications officer, leaned over to Hayes with a grin. Should we tell them about the warp drive mod we slapped together last month? You know, the one that runs on recycled waste energy? Hayes chuckled. Nah, let's keep that a surprise. Unbeknownst to the Council, the Endeavour wasn't quite as primitive as it seemed. While human technology might not look as polished or grand as the alien fleets they were now faced with, it worked in ways the Council hadn't anticipated. Human engineers had a knack for finding creative solutions to problems, using unconventional methods that the Council's highly structured minds couldn't predict. Take their propulsion system, for example. To the Council, it appeared inefficient and clunky. What they didn't realize was that the ship had been retrofitted with a warp drive that used renewable energy, a feature that not even the Council had fully mastered yet. The human approach was often scrappy, but it was also clever and effective. As the Council representatives continued to deliberate, a few of the more observant ones began to notice the inconsistencies. A representative from the Crixian cluster, a species with a knack for engineering, squinted at the readouts. Their ship, it's using a warp field generator, but the energy signature is unusual. It's far more efficient than anything we've seen from a species at their supposed level. The Delinar rep dismissed the comment with a wave. Anomalies. Probably luck or a fluke in their design. There's no way they could have innovated beyond our capabilities. Yet the Crixian wasn't convinced. They saw the subtlety in human ingenuity, the quiet ways in which their supposed primitive ship was outpacing expectations. Still, the Council, as a whole, remained dismissive. Back on the Endeavor, the crew continued to joke around. They knew they were being underestimated, and frankly, they were fine with it. Let them think we're harmless, Hayes said, a smirk on his face. It's always more fun when they don't see it coming. The Council was growing more curious by the second, but their arrogance kept them from taking the humans too seriously. For now. But tension was building. The humans had already defied their expectations, and it was only a matter of time before the Council would demand a more direct demonstration of their capabilities. The Galactic Council convened once more, this time with a clear objective, to evaluate the humans formally. Their arrogance hadn't diminished, but there was now a flicker of curiosity among them. The humans' casual attitude and their surprising technological competence had stirred unease. To them, it was time to put these Earthlings through proper tests, ones that would either humble them or prove their inadequacy once and for all. We will administer a series of assessments, declared the Zythar representative, his voice dripping with condescension. Tests of intellect, strength, and adaptability. If they fail, they will not be permitted into our galactic order. If they succeed, well, the odds of that are negligible. In the Endeavor, the crew received the Council's message with predictable humor. Tests? Parker grinned. I didn't realize we were back in school. Hayes chuckled, rolling his eyes. Guess they're about to find out humans don't do well with pop quizzes. The first test was a mental challenge. The Council had created a complex puzzle designed to stump species they deemed unworthy, an intricate, multidimensional problem meant to overwhelm the mind. The human crew was confined to a small simulation room, and the Council watched with cold confidence, expecting the humans to flounder. But instead of panic or confusion, the crew gathered around, discussing strategies. Within moments, Lieutenant Parker grabbed a notepad, jokingly sketching out her ideas. Hayes leaned over her shoulder, offering suggestions, and soon the rest of the team was chiming in, turning the process into a collaborative, and oddly jovial, effort. After an hour of back-and-forth banter and brainstorming, the puzzle was solved. The Council was stunned. This test was designed to challenge the greatest minds in the galaxy, one alien representative murmured, bewildered. They treat it like a casual exercise. They approach it with such levity, another alien mused. How can they succeed when they take nothing seriously? But the truth was, the humans took what mattered seriously, just in their own way. They approached challenges not with rigid solemnity, but with resilience, teamwork, and an ability to laugh in the face of pressure. The Council couldn't understand it, but the results were undeniable. Next came the environmental stress test. The Council subjected the humans to extreme, hostile environments, simulations of deadly atmospheres, freezing cold, blistering heat. They expected the humans to struggle, to falter under the relentless conditions that had broken countless other species before them. But humanity had been honing its survival instincts for centuries, on a planet that threw just about everything it could at them. Earth was no paradise, its inhabitants were tough, adaptable. In the freezing cold simulation, the crew huddled together, sharing body heat and laughter, making jokes about the time they'd gotten lost in the Canadian wilderness on a training mission. In the searing heat, they improvised cooling systems using the ship's equipment, and when the environment turned toxic, they held their breath and used their oxygen reserves with impressive efficiency. The crew's adaptability astounded the council. How could these primitive beings thrive in situations that had overwhelmed so many others? They're not like the others, the Crixian engineer observed, eyes narrowing at the readings. They've evolved under constant hardship. Their world has prepared them in ways we didn't anticipate. Finally, the combat simulation began. This was where the council expected the humans to fail outright. The aliens had designed the scenario to favor species with heightened physical strength, advanced reflexes, and precision weaponry. The humans entered the simulation unarmed, faced with towering opponents outfitted with state-of-the-art weapons. The simulation began, and as expected, the alien opponents advanced swiftly. But the humans didn't meet them head-on. Instead, they adapted quickly to the situation, utilizing guerrilla tactics that completely upended the council's expectations. They turned the environment to their advantage, using cover, distractions, and unorthodox maneuvers. At one point, mid-battle, Parker made a joke about the aliens' overly fancy armor, earning laughs from the crew. The aliens, unnerved by the humans' lack of seriousness even in combat, hesitated. That moment of hesitation was all the humans needed. They struck decisively, catching their opponents off guard and swiftly neutralizing them. The council was left in shock. No species had passed the combat simulation with such ease, and certainly not with humor. How? The Zythar representative asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. They succeed at every turn, but they mock the process. They laugh, they joke. How can they take nothing seriously and yet win? A voice broke through the council's silence, Hayes, standing tall before them, smiling as if he'd known this question was coming. Oh, we take what matters seriously, he said, his voice calm but firm. We just don't let it kill our fun. Humans are good at adapting. Laughing is part of how we deal with challenges. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Some, like the Crixian engineer, began to see the humans in a different light. This species wasn't just technologically or physically surprising, they had a unique resilience, a strength born from their ability to face impossible odds with a grin and a joke. Tensions began to build within the council. Some feared humanity, recognizing the potential threat of a species that could adapt and thrive so quickly under pressure. Others respected them, seeing the value in their resilience and unconventional problem-solving. They could be valuable allies, the Crixian mused aloud, breaking the silence. Or dangerous adversaries, the Zythar retorted, his voice heavy with caution. The humans had passed every test, but their future in the galactic community was far from settled. The council now stood divided, unsure whether to embrace this unpredictable species or to fear what they might become. The Galactic Council chamber was divided. The tests had been completed, and humanity had surpassed every expectation, yet the room buzzed with uncertainty. Some council members, particularly the more conservative factions, were uncomfortable, even fearful, of this new species that had so easily defied their predictions. The Zythar representative, as usual, was at the forefront of the opposition. These humans are reckless, he argued, his voice sharp with frustration. They approach every serious matter with levity. They joke in the face of danger, and yet, they succeed. How can we trust them? Their unpredictability makes them a threat. His sentiment was echoed by others in the room, members of species that valued order, control, and structure above all. To them, humanity was too chaotic, too uncontrolled. Allowing such a wild card into their ranks was a risk they weren't willing to take. But not all agreed. The Crixian engineer, who had observed the humans more closely than most, raised a hand in quiet dissent. You misunderstand their nature, the Crixian said. Their humor is not recklessness, it is how they handle pressure. They adapt because they don't see challenges the way we do. They see opportunity where we see rigidity. A murmur spread through the chamber. The Del-NAR representative, ever logical, nodded in agreement. Their ingenuity cannot be denied. They succeed not through brute force or superior technology, but through creative problem-solving. They think in ways that many of us cannot. That alone makes them invaluable. The Zythar sneered. So, you would have us trust these jokers with galactic influence? They may turn on us the moment it suits them. But others were starting to sway. The debate between fear and acceptance was heating up, and the council found itself at an impasse, split between those who saw potential and those who saw danger. Meanwhile, aboard the Endeavour, the human crew was having a field day with the situation. Parker leaned against the console, shaking her head in disbelief. So let me get this straight, she said, trying to hold back laughter. We pass all their fancy tests, blow their minds with our ingenuity, and now they're scared of us because we didn't freak out? Because we made jokes? Commander Hayes shrugged. Sounds about right. I mean, it's not every day you rattle the galaxy's most advanced species just by being yourself. The crew bantered back and forth, joking about how they'd unintentionally sparked a galactic political crisis just by having a good time. But amid the humor, there was an undercurrent of realization. This was no small discovery. Humanity had just entered the galactic stage, and now they had to decide how to handle the fallout. We could just, leave them to argue, Parker said with a grin. Keep exploring, go about our business. We're not the ones in crisis here. Hayes chuckled, though there was a thoughtful glint in his eyes. True, but we've come this far. Might be worth seeing how this all shakes out. Besides, I'm kind of enjoying how much we've gotten under their skin. Back in the council chamber, the debate raged on, growing more heated by the minute. The humans were listening in, and it became clear that if someone didn't step in soon, the council might tear itself apart over the decision. It was then that Commander Hayes made a decision. Patch me through, he said, his tone a mix of amusement and diplomacy. Let's see if we can't smooth things over. Appearing before the council's holographic display, Hayes greeted them with his signature relaxed smile. I hope we're not causing too much trouble up here, he said, his voice light but with a diplomatic edge. I'm getting the sense that we've rattled a few cages. The Zythar representative bristled, but before he could speak, Hayes held up a hand. Look, I get it. We're not what you expected. We don't have the same polished diplomacy or the same rigid structure you're used to. But that doesn't mean we can't be valuable allies. It just means we're different. There was a pause, and then, in true human fashion, Hayes diffused the tension with a joke. Besides, I hear your council meetings could use a bit more fun. We humans have a way of lightening the mood. A few alien representatives exchanged bewildered glances, and then, to the surprise of many, the Crixian engineer let out a small, quiet chuckle. It was the first time any of the council members had laughed in the presence of the humans. Slowly, the atmosphere in the chamber began to shift. We're not here to cause problems, Hayes continued, more seriously now. We're here to explore, to learn, and to contribute, if you'll have us. And yeah, we might joke around a bit, but when it comes down to it, we're capable, we're adaptable, and we take what matters seriously. The council was silent for a long moment. Then, one of the more forward-thinking members spoke up. Perhaps this is exactly what the council needs, they said. A fresh perspective. We've grown complacent in our ways. Humanity's unpredictability, their adaptability, it could bring new strength to the council. The Zythar representative still looked uneasy, but even he couldn't deny that the humans had proven themselves. Reluctantly, he nodded. Fine. But know this, humans. Your presence here is a risk. We'll be watching. Hayes grinned. Wouldn't have it any other way. And with that, the decision was made. Humanity was offered a place in the Galactic Council, on their own terms. As the humans prepared for the next steps, they couldn't help but joke about the future. Just think, Parker said with a smirk. Council meetings are going to get a whole lot more interesting with us around. Hayes chuckled. That's the spirit. Now let's go show them how humans handle the galaxy. Both sides came to a tentative understanding, with the Galactic Council beginning to see the value in this unpredictable new species. The humans, in turn, had secured their place among the stars, not by force, but with humor, resilience, and a knack for surprising everyone they met. In the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council, a message reverberated across the stars: humanity was officially part of the Council. The decision, while controversial, had been made. Word spread quickly, reaching the farthest corners of the galaxy. Reactions were mixed, as expected. Some species were baffled. They couldn't comprehend how this small, unpredictable species had managed to navigate its way into the highest echelons of intergalactic politics. On planets light years away, Council-affiliated worlds received the news with uncertainty. In some sectors, alien leaders shook their heads, worried about the humans' irreverence and their unconventional approach to, well, everything. What would happen when these jokers had a say in the galaxy's future? Others, especially the more progressive factions, were intrigued. If nothing else, humanity had proven to be resilient, resourceful, and capable of adapting to any situation. They had passed every test, albeit in ways no one could have anticipated. Within the Council itself, things changed almost immediately. The humans, now fully recognized members, wasted no time in leaving their mark. At first, the Council meetings were tense. Aliens accustomed to a strict code of conduct struggled to adapt to the humans' relaxed attitude. Council gatherings had always been grave affairs, heavy with the weight of galactic matters. But the humans, they brought something entirely different to the table. There were stories, some that spread across the galaxy as amusing rumors, others documented as fact, about how humanity's quirks began influencing the Council's operations. Take, for example, the day one human representative brought a guitar to a diplomatic summit, strumming tunes from Earth while they waited for the Zythar delegation to finish one of their endless debates. What started as awkward silence ended with half the room tapping their feet to the music. Then there was the moment when human food caught the attention of alien species. A Terran diplomat, tired of the bland nourishment offered during council meetings, introduced pizza to the galactic community. Within months, the dish had become a favorite across several worlds. Interstellar chefs began experimenting with their own versions, and what had once been seen as an eccentricity from a backwater planet became a culinary phenomenon. It wasn't just the cultural side of things, though. Human ingenuity had a tangible impact on the Council's technological development. Despite their primitive status, humans brought new ways of thinking to the table, improving galactic technologies in ways the Council hadn't anticipated. Renewable energy solutions, once dismissed as inefficient by most species, became the cornerstone of new energy policies after humans demonstrated how their warp drives functioned using clean, sustainable resources. Even human games began to spread. An alien species that had never developed competitive sports quickly fell in love with soccer. Galactic tournaments began springing up, and suddenly, species from all corners of the universe were debating strategies and formations as if they'd been fans for centuries. It didn't take long for the Galactic Council to realize that the humans weren't just a curiosity. Their presence was shaking things up. But the Council also saw that it was exactly this unpredictability, this resilience and willingness to think outside the box, that made humanity so unique, and so important to the galaxy's future. There were still those who doubted. The Zythar representative, among others, continued to watch humanity with a suspicious eye. Their nature will cause chaos, he would often say, his words tinged with the same caution he'd shown during their first encounter. But others had begun to embrace the change. The Crixian engineer, now an advocate for integrating human ideas, often cited their resilience as a model for how the galaxy could evolve. As the galaxy slowly adapted to humanity's influence, the crew of the Endeavour found themselves back on Earth, basking in the quiet after their historic adventure. They had seen things few humans could even imagine, navigated political minefields that could have gone horribly wrong, and somehow, through it all, they'd kept their sense of humor intact. Parker leaned back in her chair, watching the sun set over the horizon, a grin on her face. So, we're officially part of the Council. Who would have thought? Hayes, sitting beside her, shrugged. Honestly? I'm just surprised we didn't get kicked out. They both laughed, but there was an undercurrent of pride in their voices. They had faced impossible odds and not only survived, they'd thrived. Their adventure had proven that humanity had something special, something the rest of the galaxy couldn't quite replicate. You know what's funny? Parker continued, her eyes reflecting the fading light. It wasn't our tech that impressed them. Wasn't our weapons or our ships. It was us. The way we handle things, the way we laugh when things get tough. Guess that's our secret weapon, Hayes replied with a smirk. A sense of humor. They both sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on what had happened and what was to come. The galaxy was vast, full of challenges and opportunities they couldn't yet see. But one thing was certain, humanity was ready for whatever came next. They'd faced the unknown, cracked a few jokes along the way, and now they were part of something bigger than they'd ever imagined. And to think, Parker said, breaking the silence, the real fun hasn't even started. Wait till the rest of the galaxy meets humanity on our terms. Hayes raised an eyebrow. You mean more pizza parties and soccer tournaments? Exactly. She grinned. But with a little more chaos. The crew of the Endeavour had changed the course of history, not just for themselves, but for humanity as a whole. They had proven that it wasn't technology or sheer power that made them special. It was their resilience, their adaptability, and their ability to laugh in the face of adversity. And that, more than anything, was what would ensure their place among the stars.